Today, we've got a really incredible story of resilience for you. We're going to dive into a new report from the U.S. Department of Agriculture that shows how Ukraine's absolutely vital grain industry managed to pull itself back from the brink and reclaim its spot at the very center of the global food market. So, to really get why this matters so much, you have to understand Ukraine's role on the world stage. We're not just talking about a country that grows grain, it's a foundational pillar of the world's food supply. There's a reason they call it a global breadbasket. Its exports literally feed millions and millions of people. And to put that into perspective, just look at the corn market. Ukraine is a total powerhouse. It's the fourth largest exporter on the entire planet, right up there with the US, Brazil, and Argentina. That's a huge deal. And it doesn't stop with corn. When you look at wheat, a staple for so many countries, Ukraine is the world's sixth largest exporter. So you can see why, if its ability to ship that grain is threatened, the whole world really sits up and takes notice. Well, that threat became a full-blown reality. And that brings us to the core of our story today, the Black Sea chokehold. So, in early 2022, a full-scale blockade basically just slammed the door shut on Ukraine's deep water ports in the Black Sea. And you have to understand, these ports weren't just an option for getting grain out, they were the option. They were the main artery connecting Ukrainian farms to the rest of the world. And overnight, that artery was completely cut off. And the effect was, well, it was immediate and it was brutal. You can see right here in this chart, during that initial Black Sea blockade phase, exports just fell off a cliff. It's a really stark picture of a critical economic engine grinding to a complete stop. But, that's not where the story ends. Facing this incredible crisis, Ukraine had to get creative. This led to a period of really ingenious but super difficult workarounds. Let's call it the era of the Danube detour. So, with the big ports totally out of commission, the whole export operation had to pivot. And fast. Grain was rerouted to these much smaller river ports on the Danube, or it was sent on these really expensive and slow overland journeys by train and truck. It was a lifeline, for sure, but man, was it inefficient and costly. And you can see just how essential that workaround became. By 2023, even after some of the main Odessa capacity came back online, those small Danube ports were still handling a staggering 45% of all sea exports. It just shows you a system under immense pressure, really relying on its backup plan. But all of this difficulty, this workaround phase, it was all setting the stage for the real turning point, the big breakthrough, the reopening of the Odessa ports. Then, in 2024, the whole situation just flipped. Ukraine managed to secure a reliable corridor to its major deep water ports around Odessa. And this wasn't just a temporary patch. This was a fundamental, game-changing moment for the entire industry. And the impact? Wow. You can see it right here when you compare it to the year before. The share from those little Danube ports, it drops from 45% all the way down to just 13%. And meanwhile, the big, efficient Odessa ports surged to handle 85% of all sea exports. The main engine was officially back online. And the result of all that, the total share of grain being exported by sea shot up to 92% in 2024. That's nearly back to where things were before the war. This one number really tells the story of how critical reopening those main ports was. So, what does this all actually mean on the ground? Well, this breakthrough created a massive ripple effect, especially when you look at the actual costs of getting grain from a farm to the world market. See, having a more direct and efficient route to the sea doesn't just mean you can ship more grain. It means it costs a whole lot less to do it. And that cost saving, that's the key to the entire industry's recovery. And the numbers here are just wild. The cost of ocean freight from Odessa dropped 41%. The cost for those Danube barges, it plummeted by 60% as demand shifted back to the sea. Even rail costs fell by 25%. This was a gigantic economic relief across the entire supply chain. Okay, so to see how this really hit home for the farmers themselves, we need to understand a term called the farm price spread. The easiest way to think about it is like this. It's the gap between the global market price for grain and the price a Ukrainian farmer actually gets paid. The bigger that gap, the less money ends up in the farmer's pocket. So smaller is better. So what happened to that spread? Well, at the height of the crisis in 2022, the gap for wheat was over $230 a ton. But by 2024, with the ports open and transport costs way down, it shrank to just $86. That is a massive, massive difference. And why is this the most important part of the story? Because every single dollar that spread narrows is another dollar that goes directly into the pockets of the farmers who are out there growing the grain. It means the industry is more sustainable, it's more profitable, and it honors all the hard work that happens at the very start of the supply chain. So let's pull all this together. What does this whole story tell us? First, it shows the incredible, remarkable resilience of Ukraine's grain sector. Second, it proves that this entire industry lives or dies based on access to those deep-water Black Sea ports. Third, it shows a direct line. Lower transport costs mean better pay for farmers. And finally, this recovery helps stabilize food markets for all of us. Which leaves us with one final thought. The recovery has been nothing short of amazing, a real testament to ingenuity and persistence. But with the future still so uncertain, the big question has to be, is this comeback built to last? Is the global breadbasket officially back for good?